Hey, Coffee is Me listeners, welcome back to Coffee is Me podcast, where we learn about how to start and how to manage a good coffee business. Today, I have with me Mabel and Ming from MoonWake Coffee. Hey guys, welcome.
Oh, thanks for having us.
Yeah, it's awesome to be here. Thanks for having us.
Well, thank you for finding time. I know you guys are very busy with the coffee business and with your professions. I really appreciate it. We have usually this warm-up question. Do you remember your first sip of coffee and how was it? So Mabel, can you start? Do you remember your first sip of coffee?
I do. This is funny because I don't know if my dad actually knows this, but my first sip of coffee was those glass bottle, like Starbucks Frappuccino value packs that you can get from Costco. And I wasn't allowed to drink it growing up because my parents were worried about like my brain development or maybe hyperactivity. I don't know, one of those things. But I think it was during summer and I just snuck one of my dad's Starbucks Frappuccinos and I drank it. And it was so sweet, but it was amazing when you're a kid and you just want sugar. That was my first kind of experience with caffeine. I don't think I slept at all that night. So that was great.
Ming, how about you?
I think I'm similar to Mabel and probably a lot of other guests. I kind of started with that ultra sweet coffee as well. For me, it was Dunkin' Donuts, probably start of college, I think first year. I just could not stay awake. It was a means to an end. It was a quad shot with extra sugar and extra cream, but it did the job. And eventually I started liking the coffee part of it. So yeah, that's how I started.
Maybe I love your story that you actually added the value pack.
Yes.
So it's just like, it's the cheap, version of that.
Yeah, it was great. It was great.
What are your professions? What are you doing now? And why did you guys decide to start a coffee company?
My profession right now is actually as a coffee professional. I quit my job last year in 2023 to focus full-time on all things coffee and building out our brand and our roastery and our cafe coming up. So that's my job currently. In the past, I used to be a program manager at a big social media company that starts with an M and rhymes with beta. So that was my previous life before becoming a coffee professional.
And on my side, I'm still living a dual life. So I have a day job. I'm an engineer by training. And right now I manage a small software team at Tesla. And on the side, I help out and run especially the roasting part of MoonWake.
Why did you guys decide, in Mabel's case, quit your job, possibly not very badly paid? And in your case, Ming, why did you decide that working for Tesla is so easy? I need something more to do in my life. So why did you decide to start a coffee company?
We kind of started it together, but I think Ming kind of laid the groundwork for us and I kind of took it over. So Ming, you want to talk about that a little bit more?
I can share kind of the origin a little bit here. It kind of happened mostly naturally. As you said, things are pretty chill at Tesla, except in reality, they're very not chill. But I got into coffee kind of as an enthusiast. And I had a really good friend here, Sean, who we were just a group of coworkers that wanted to spend 30 minutes every day brewing coffee for everybody as a way to kind of just chill, relax, share something pleasant, have a good experience, and chat about something, reflect about something outside of work. It was a good reset that is needed when you have such a stressful job. And we bought this old Starbucks branded espresso machine, a Mazzer grinder for $20. It's probably 40 years old, but it did the job. We made a lot of espresso for people. Everybody was happy. Got more and more into coffee. We thought it would be cheaper to maybe start roasting our own, getting the cheapest roaster we could find. So it was really just a passion thing that began. And then, when Mabel got more involved and we started serving more people, friends and family, I think that's when we decided, hey, there could be a business to this. It could be viable. And I think that's, Mabel will probably hand off to you. That's where the business side really came in and took it from this side passion hobby into something more sustainable.
Ming kind of brought me along the coffee journey with his friends as well. So he kind of became part of this enthusiast crowd, so to speak, of Ming and Sean and some of his other friends. But as we kind of decided, hey, let's start actually packaging our coffee, right? Start like slapping labels on it, start, reaching out to people maybe outside of our friends and family to see if they might be interested in buying the coffee. That's when I got a little bit inspired and I felt so much more fulfilling, right? To put something out there that you yourself are responsible, for putting out there. In the past roles, I was just a small cog in a big machine, right? But this is the first time, hey, I did something, I gave it to somebody else, they're really happy about it. And just being able to see that direct interaction and that direct impact just gave me this fire and this passion to try to build this out like full time as a business for both of us. And I mean, I'm kind of paving the way right now as I quit my job to, focus on the business full time. But, there's still, I kind of think of it as like I'm kind of the COO, but then Ming kind of helps shape a bit of the vision and the direction. And I execute a lot of, the ideas that we have together. So you definitely need, I think, one person that can dedicate a lot more time. Or you can think about the hours of the day, right? You need someone that can dedicate those hours. And we're fortunate that there's two of us, on the same team, like we're married, but then we're also, very good teammates together. So we can kind of help take care of the others' roles that maybe they might not have bandwidth or the expertise to kind of step in there.
Yeah, so it's very interesting what you said about you want to create something and you guys want to see the feedback. You kind of feel that you are, well, let me use the word artist. You're not using canvas or your voice, but you're using your rose profiles. You're using certain vision, how to present a very unique food, coffee, which sounds great. Do you have any regrets that you left that M company, kind of a safety, more or less, right, into these crazy world of coffee?
Coffee is really different than doing anything in the tech world, or you could just be sitting in a meeting, right? Or you could just be doing some assignments on the side. And even in the downtime, you're still getting paid. Right? You're still getting paid on a salary basis. If you're not moving, if you're not doing something, right? If you're not thinking about it, then there's no value being created for your business, right? Like you're not paid to sit there and do nothing and just chill. So I think for me, sometimes as you look back, it's like, oh, wow, it was pretty comfortable being paid to kind of sit in meetings and like do kind of that. But at the same time, the fulfillment that I get out of it, I look back and I remember how frustrated I was, feeling so powerless in my previous role and feeling like I was in a department of Meta that it was a thankless job. Is people only got mad at you if something went wrong. People never actually said good job for doing things well or doing things right. So in this, like with coffee, it's very obvious. People will, like you can see the look on their face, right? When they're happy about the drink that you served or the coffee that they get to brew at home and hearing that feedback. And I think that just makes me feel so much more fulfilled. It's really hard to put a value on that, right? That kind of personal fulfillment. And I think, we're lucky in that we've been able to save up a lot, right? We've worked for a good number of years and have the privilege of being able to make that choice, right? I know some people, it's really hard for them to, be able to, okay, I'm going to quit my job. But if you have a family or if you have other obligations that kind of require you to have a more stable job, then, I can totally see where you might have regrets and have to decide to go back. But I think for now, Ming and I we don't have kids yet. We just have one fur child, right? So this was probably the right opportunity for us to, try to build out this business. In a worst case, if I need to go back to work, I could, but I really hope that I don't have to go back to the corporate world.
I was going to say, this is why it's kind of nice to take measured risks. We're doing this as a transition. So we haven't, completely dropped everything and sunk all of our life investments, even though, some people can do that and maybe succeed. But we're taking very calculated risks. So I think Mable is kind of setting the way for us, but we do still have a safety net. Like I am still working this full-time job that, like pays pretty well. And it's not like a one-stop transition. But that said, I think, longer term, it would be nice for both of us to be able to commit full time and to see this through as our primary business and source of income. I try not to think too far in the future and take it step by step though. So we'll see. I still love a lot of the things in the world of engineering and technology. So I'm sure that'll be hard to give up if it comes time to that. But I think we're taking like the next best step that we can see and then kind of seeing where that leads us as we go.
I think I should start asking this more often because, we always talk about how to start business, but we never address the fact that how it become a business that basically you have to have that safety net. Many of people starting businesses have families, and how you do that, right? Are you going to abandon your job, or and there's no good or wrong answer here, because I interviewed people who basically were homeless in their roasteries, quotation mark homeless. They were basically sleeping there, taking a giant risk in their lives, and it worked out for them very well. But of course, not everybody's that lucky, skilled, whatever you call that, right? So thank you for sharing this. It's really cool. So people can have actually a healthy plan how to maybe start a company and not get bankrupt.
Yeah.
I will add one more thing to that. The really good thing is if you drop everything and you take that route, is you've kind of burned the boats, right? Like there's no going back. You have one path, and it's to keep going forward. And I think that there's a lot of power in that sort of mentality. And I think we try to keep that, even though we do have a safety net or being way more careful. I think like Mable especially has that mentality. It's not like, oh, if it doesn't work out, I can go back. It's like, it's more so we treat it like this has to work out. We have to make it work. Like ultimately, if it doesn't, we know in the back of our head, maybe there's a way out. But I think there is power in still treating it like this is the only way and we got to keep going.
I did both, and I did get burned. I didn't become homeless, luckily, or something like that. But my very first steps were very bad. Of course, that was also the best lesson in my life. So anytime I started anything else, I kind of was more careful. So yeah, I think it's very personal too. Even today, I live in the United States now for 14 years. I did not burn bridges in Europe. I still have real estate there, although, I cannot even imagine that I will go back living there. I'm so set here. My kids are here. Everything is here. I think it's very individual. But I will start to ask this question because this is, I think, very important to realize that, what kind of background people have before they start business.
Yeah. And I think one last thing to add is also like, what are your priorities in your life too, that you feel like is going to impact your ability to dedicate X amount of time, right, to your business, right? Is it important for you to have a lot of leisure time, or is it important for you to, have a lot of time for your family or just the other things in your life? And I think that's where Ming and I had to be realistic about, our priority shifts as well, given our time, right? It's, for instance, we used to, go hang out with friends on the weekends and do a lot of that. And now our weekends are very much like coffee roasting, preparing for the farmer's market, doing the farmer's market, decompressing at home, and, kind of resetting. And that's actually one thing we're trying to make sure it's still sustainable for both of us, is we still find time for each other, right? And to kind of, yes, we got to hustle and do the business, but you also have to take care of yourself as a human. And as you're thinking about like long-term, mentally, is this something that you can handle? So another thing to think about as well.
Yeah, I'm horrible at this. By the way, if I enjoy my work, I'm just putting everything in it, and then I burn out and I get grumpy and I start to hate what I do. So it's a very good point, by the way. Yeah, really good. Anyway, let's move on with the coffee. And you guys have a very unique name, MoonWake. What does it mean, and where does this name came from?
Ming and I kind of spent a really long time trying to think about, what would be a really meaningful brand name, and also like from the meaning itself, right? I think we wanted to make sure we created not just a product, but also like a brand experience and kind of brand ethos. So I'm not sure if it's an actual word, but Ming kind of came up with this idea of like MoonWake. The rough meaning is that it's the reflection of the moon on like a body of water. So kind of like wakeboarding, right? Like there's like the wake. Overall, it's just a sense of stillness and kind of calm and introspection that you kind of get when you see this image, or, that it kind of evokes. So that's kind of what we want people to think about or feel when they interact with our brand, or when they either like purchase coffee from us, or we get to serve them coffee, or in the future, right, if we host them at our cafe roastery, right, just to have that sense of calm and stillness and kind of like a respite, like a shelter from all the craziness that happens outside. Ming kind of touched on this with his coworker, right? Like in their work, it was really stressful. So that coffee break was such an important part of them being able to reset and have that moment of, okay, I don't have to worry about, what's going on with my work or with stress or with life. And I can just be in this moment with my coffee and enjoy it, either by myself or together with other people. So that's kind of the idea of the name. And I think Ming also has a little bit of, he can kind of mention this too. He's kind of had a fascination with space as well. So it's kind of bridging those two kind of like meetings and a lot of things in our lives together. So
you have to be careful that he doesn't jump ship to SpaceX.
Then we'd have to move to LA. I like being here in the Bay Area. So
nice. Ming, do you want to add something to the name?
I don't know. I've had a lot of times in my life where I've gone to like a nice lake in nature, seen, the reflection, and it's just a calm day and you get like that shimmery effect. And it's just, oh, wow. Like you can appreciate things. You can kind of stop worrying for a bit. And so many of our friends and family around here, especially in the Bay Area, working really hard, not really able to take a moment for themselves. That's kind of like the feeling we were chasing. So definitely won't be on a rocket ship or anything like that. I feel like that will definitely not be calming or kind of what we were intending with the brand.
So my first impression when I heard the name MoonWake was like, I don't get it. Like we don't it's necessarily the evening, so we don't drink coffee in the evening, and I definitely don't want to be awake in the evening, right? And now, as you guys explained it, that it's all about calmness, I almost forgot that that's a very European perspective, by the way. When we have coffee, we usually with friends, chatting. That's your quotation mark cigarette break, because people don't smoke anymore. So they have their coffee break instead. But when I was still working for the UN, the cigarette break was something like, it must happen. Every hour, people went out to smoke, for 7 minutes. And that was not even about the cigarette. It was about, I want to have that 7 minutes out of office, right? Kind of thing, stand up. So today it's coffee. So yeah, I love it. It's great. Does it mean that you're going to also educate Americans not to drink coffee in the car, but just sit down and chill with your friends, have a chit chat, to people watching while you're drinking your coffee?
I think it's more of a state of mind, maybe. As much as I would love for people to have that physical place, and we can hopefully bring that. I think it's also just like a mental mode that, even if you are in your car, you could actually just sit for a moment, right? Like say you're in a commute to work, right? And okay, I can actually actively choose to decide, am I going to be angry, right? When I'm, on my way, or am I going to actively choose to have this moment of calm and, oh, I have a great cup of coffee and I can appreciate that, right? So I think it's also just how do you train or how do we think about it, like from a kind of mental perspective, and it doesn't have to necessarily be physical, because you could be brewing coffee at home, right? Like for instance, we spend a lot of time sourcing really excellent coffees, and we hope that is translated into people's brewing experiences at home, that they can really appreciate, this kind of personal, brewing experience as well.
The reason why I invited you for podcast, well, first is because I like you guys. Second is that you are just starting and you remember things which, when you are in a business for a long time, you just kind of forgot. You remember your first customers or first customer. Who was this group of people? Who bought your first coffee?
Well, aside from our friends and family, it's just easy word of mouth. We'll just text our friends. The first non-friends and family was actually our neighbors and our local community. A really easy way, right, is to just kind of be able to deliver someone's coffee, walking, right? And what I did was I posted on a few Facebook groups, like neighborhood Facebook groups, and I said, hey, community, we're local and we roast out of San Jose, and we're your neighbor, would love to, have the opportunity to share our coffee with you if you're interested. And we got pretty good feedback. A bunch of people from my community, I'd never met them before, on Facebook, messaged me and were really supportive, and had a few people order coffee. And one person has actually been a subscriber to our coffee ever since 2023. So shout out to Camille if she ever listens to this. But I've never met her before, but just being able to share that, you find those common connections to establish those relationships is really awesome. So but since then we've launched our website, and now we have so many customers. I sometimes can't keep track, but I try my best to at least see if there's any recurring, customers to be like, oh, thank you again for your order.
You said that out of the obvious friends and family. I mean, let's go back to that a little bit, because it's not obvious. I don't think that's obvious, because I have friends, I have family. And I tell you honestly, back in Slovakia, when I started Green Plantation, neither my family, neither my friends were my first customer.
No.
Which, yeah, exactly. And that's very different when it comes to the United States, by the way. I know. But so how would you ask them? Do you just announce them, hey guys, we're making coffee, and send them text, or what did you do?
If we go back to sort of like that office water cooler example, it was sort of like we made quite a scene, I would say, like this big grinder in the middle of a quiet office with mostly computers. It smelled pretty good. And so when we started roasting our own coffee, like it attracted people, and our friends or even like just coworkers would come up and we would chat about the coffee. And it was just sort of natural word of mouth from the friends part. And then, yeah, I think like Mabel and I are both family oriented. We want to keep our families engaged and, like seeing what we're doing. And it's a good way to get honest feedback as well, maybe. So for us, like, it was a good way to say like, hey, we're trying to do this thing, but, give us honest feedback. If you were to just buy this out in the world, would you think it's good? Would you think it's average?
And then you guys mentioned that you posted in the Facebook groups. I can see already what would happen if I post in a Facebook group that, hey, we are sorting coffee. It was like spammer, go away. So Mabel, how did you go about the fact that you didn't make people angry, but they actually got excited about this?
Well, number one, I did not use ChatGPT to, draft the prompt. I think that definitely helped that it came from me as a human being, but I think maybe it was just how I messaged the post. Very much like focusing on, we're a small business. I mean, just being objective about who we are, right? We're a small business and we have these big goals and big dreams, and would love to have, people be a part of it and share it with our community. And I think people are more open, right, to supporting each other than you think, right? In the past, I would have been worried, like, oh, what if people like are upset, or what if people say no, right? I think I've gotten over a lot of that fear of what people think, and just putting yourself out there is honestly the first step. Obviously being mindful about how you word things and not coming off too, overly confident or over too, people can kind of sense that. So I think just being genuine with yourself, right, and genuine with your intentions, and people will be able to pick up on that. I was fortunate that my neighbors, the community that we're in San Jose, everyone's really like proud to be part of this neighborhood. So I think that also helps to find a community that is willing to support each other and support their neighbors, even if they might not know them.
If you guys would have to give a tip to somebody who, let's say, roasted their first coffee and like, okay, we need to sell this, where would I find my first customers? What would you recommend them?
It's very situational, but I think starting local and expanding is always the easiest. But it kind of depends too. Like there's a lot of people, I kind of view things differently than Mabel. I give credit to a lot of Mabel's ability to just be genuine and open up to people and kind of start these conversations. I think that's a great way to do it if you have that personality and kind of like emotional connection to people. I'm different in that I'm part robot, and probably many people won't be excited to talk to me. So I kind of view things as problems. So like maybe there's something in your local community where there's like an animal shelter or a firefighters union, like they're struggling to do what they're doing. Maybe they could use some better coffee, and maybe try reaching out to people who could benefit from that good coffee that maybe just doesn't have time to try to find anything better than some off the shelf, like mass produced product. Yeah, there's many different ways, but those are the two that I think, depending on your personality, might be good ones to try.
I think similar to how we started, your friends and family, hopefully at least, if they were your friends and family, even if they don't drink coffee, what I found is that my friends that don't drink coffee will actually still tell other people about, oh, my friend is starting a coffee company. So just being able to like think of opportunities where everyone has connections, right? And being open to kind of sharing those connections with other people, I think is a really powerful, I guess, method. I've worked at a lot of different companies in the past. So I think knowing a lot of people, that really helped me, I think spread the word a lot more, because I've had friends that work at this company and then they have this many coworkers, and I have this friend that worked at this company, and then they kind of all talk to their coworkers. And in the Bay Area, a lot of it's like musical chairs within the big companies. So things I think start to overlap, and people kind of get that repetition. Oh, I've heard of this person before because my other friend mentioned this. So yeah, I think a lot of it's like putting yourself out there and not being shy to ask. The worst that hopefully the worst your friends and family would say is no. And then you stop bothering them. So like, don't kind of push the subject if they're kind of sick of hearing it. So
I think you also use like LinkedIn, right?
I did.
And like that actually worked surprisingly well. Like it's not your first go-to social media platform that you would think of selling coffee, but with what Mabel was saying, like all those connections, a lot of those are like from businesses or your past work. And that's an avenue that we just decided to try, and it worked really well too.
Incredible. Thank you for sharing. So I think that a block party would be a good way maybe to start. So, get people to taste the coffee. And I really hope that some of my countrymen from Slovakia and Hungary will listen to this. I don't know how is it in the rest of the Europe. I did not live in Western Europe for a longer time. But the reason why family and friends will not be your first customers, because they expect that, we are your family and friends who will provide it for free for us. And that's actually absolutely how it works. I have still that mentality. Like my mother-in-law, for example, she was a big fan of whatever I do, right? And she's American. And when we launched Unleashed Coffee, she always wanted to buy coffee from me. And I was like, no, I'm giving you it. You cannot buy it from me because I have that European mentality still, right? At some point, she went to a grocery store and she bought it at a grocery store. So she doesn't, even it was a bit older, she just really wanted to support the business. And I'm like, wow, that's incredible. So very different attitude. Yeah. So, all right, perfect. Thank you for sharing. And what we also did with Unleashed Coffee, we're also not shy because, as you said, we determined that we're going to do this. This has to happen. And we collected all the emails I had in my Gmail, everything, like friends, foes, everything. And we just sent, not the email campaign, just sent what's happening in my life kind of thing. Because I had a business partner, William Murad. So William sent it to his friends. I sent it to my friends. And many of them became our first customers. And we also learned that, we also made some people angry, So it's like, you're competing with me. I was like, wait, what? Oh, whatever, never mind. We have to have kind of like a guts to do that because that's what you do now, business, right? So, yeah.
Well, right now we have, primarily direct to consumer with our online websites. We can order coffee and other small things online right now, but primarily coffee. We also have the farmers market, which is a really, really big, driver for us. And that's where we do a lot of our retail, like drink sales. We still bring some coffee bags to the farmers market to sell. But we don't, we don't purposely over roast to bring it just because we want to keep our inventory, or excess inventory pretty lean. With coffee, you don't want it to stale, or if you can't sell it, it becomes kind of a challenge there. And then a little bit of wholesale. So we work with multi roastery cafes. So cafes that serve coffee from different roasters. Like they don't roast their own coffee. But we work with right now one cafe that we're really good friends with. They're called Paper Sun Coffee up in San Francisco. They're attached to Neighbor Bakehouse. So those are the three kind of primary channels right now that we're working on, and it's what's sustainable right now, given that we don't have a coffee shop, right, or our own roastery, and it just means we can take things a little bit slower. But with that said, we have been growing pretty fast, so I think we need our own home very soon.
Yeah, I'd add to like an extension of the farmers market. We do like occasional pop-ups as well, like more special, like one-off events for certain companies or events. And then we have done like a bigger wholesale in the past too, as an experiment where we sold or provided like to an on-site cafe at a large tech company. And that was like for their main espresso usage. So it was a huge volume, but low like demands for like packaging or anything like that. We just gave them like big 5-pound bricks. And so we used to do that in the past, but we don't really prioritize that anymore. Yeah. Some other small stuff we've done. Yeah. So a big part of it is trying to just make sure our brand and our coffee is presented in a way that we really like. And working with Paper Sun, for example, has been amazing. Like we've talked with them, they put just as much care into the product as we do, and they know our story very well. A lot of our espresso coffee, I would say, especially in the past, that bean that we had was roasted maybe a little bit lighter than what most cafes or tech companies with their equipment is kind of dialed to. And I know Mabel spent a lot of time helping them dial in, but it wasn't like the best, application, and we couldn't really get it to a level that I think we honestly prefer. And yeah, so with some of those challenges, I think we've like dialed back on that side of the effort for now. Even though it's valid to go that route, but we find we're happier generally with the experience working with these like cafes that we have like a more personal connection with.
I almost was certain that that's the answer. I just have to check. And also, like, my experience is that many times these impersonal sales have very low margins. So I kind of like, I don't need that work in my life. If I want to spend X amount of time in my business, I'd rather do something which has more meaning. And you guys said in the beginning that for you, even changing a good paid job at, Meta was, I wanted to have more meaning in my life, right? So, yeah, I get it. Yeah, so it's cool. I did few farmers markets, but never really as a beverage provider. More like just standing there and talking about our coffee and selling coffee bags. So I'm just curious, what does the farmer market do for you when it comes to money and when it comes to other benefits?
Yeah, I can kind of get started there, but then Ming can talk about a lot of the secondary benefits too. So when we were first starting out, Ming mentioned we were doing a lot of pop-ups in the past, right? And that was, we would work with, for example, we did a pop-up at my climbing gym, that I was a part of. That was a really great opportunity. We did one at a boutique, like a local boutique, and a couple of others here and there. But I think what ended up being the challenge was that it wasn't a consistent showing for us, right? People didn't know where to find us, right? People were excited to try us, but then they weren't sure, you're only doing like a once a month pop-up and okay, like I don't even know where it's going to be, right? So we decided to pivot really, actually pretty quickly last year in July timeframe to decide to do a farmer's market because it's every week, right? People know where to find you. And it's also just a more consistent kind of setup as well. They're there every Sunday at Cupertino, De Anza College. And then from a revenue perspective, it's actually opened up quite a bit of revenue opportunity for us. So at the beginning, our peak drink volume was only like 80 drinks per, 4 hours of service. But then now we've grown to actually averaging like 200 drinks for a 4-hour service, which I want to say is pretty comparable to like an actual coffee shop. And we're doing it all at the farmer's market. From a revenue perspective, doing pretty well. It helps, give us enough capital to invest in, for example, like new green coffees and other, equipment that we need to keep bringing great stuff, to our customers. So that's been, from a revenue business perspective, a really great channel for us. In terms of the secondary benefits, I kind of mentioned like the consistent showing, like establishing that brand presence is really helpful.
Yeah, maybe before I jump into that, because I know Valerian loves the numbers, maybe you can share some of the numbers too.
Yeah. I mean, I was like rapidly making sure, I should probably, keep a good track of this myself. But so these days, every week, in terms of net sales, we have about anywhere from to 1,500 in net sales daily. We've been really fortunate, to have revenue and income source from the farmers market. I don't know if it's worth talking about like profit margin, but if you want, I can share.
Why not?
I mean, I can share about it. Yeah. So right now we are actually pretty fortunate that a lot of our staff is volunteer staff, really great friends that we've made in the coffee enthusiast community. So we're actually able to keep a lot of our overhead really low. So we're, I think, about maybe 55%, 55-ish% plus maybe profitability. I think if we were to actually pay them, it'd be closer to more reasonable, like 25% margin. But I think that might be a good segue into, kind of what Mig might talk about as well.
There's a lot of that side benefit, I think that hints at, which is we're super fortunate to like the Bay Area coffee enthusiast community that they took us in and were excited to, help us with our mission, and they became good friends. But also for them, we kind of have this really nice relationship now where these people who are, true, I say it very endearingly, like coffee nerds, they love this topic and they have so much passion and knowledge about it are customers. So we do like a full service. So we do like pour over in addition to espresso drinks. We give like that whole slow bar type presentation to the customers and explain the coffee every time. And they love to share everything they've learned. And we have so many customers just ask about like how to brew properly. And then we get the benefit of getting all this great knowledge from the coffee community, but we also give them kind of like a fun way to experience the other side of coffee that they don't get to experience as easily. They spend a lot of time dialing in and buying coffee, the best coffee from all over the world, but they don't really get to serve it in a high volume setting and see what that's like, or to talk to a lot of people at one time. And so this relationship that we've built with them has really worked great in both directions. And it's fun. It's almost like, once a week we get this opportunity for these guys to jump on bar. And it's almost like that video game that I don't know if you've ever played before, but it's called Overcooked. It's like a Nintendo game. Basically, like you're a bunch of little characters and you're trying to fulfill orders at a restaurant. And so you're like running around trying to like fry things and like throw it on somebody else's plate and deliver it before the timer comes up. And this is like kind of like a real life video game too, which has been fun for our volunteers. Like, how efficient can you get at preparing like excellent drinks? So yeah, that is definitely a huge side benefit that I wanted to mention. Like Brian Kwan, Harry, and a lot of these other like Bay Area, coffee nerds get a chance to come and have fun with us. And we get the benefit of, a little bit more margin as a result from the donation of their time. But from the customer perspective, it's unique too. It's a lot of knowledge and sharing and unique drinks processes that they wouldn't see even in a coffee shop. So a lot of our customers a huge percentage of them, I don't know how many, are repeat, every week. And they tell us that this is the highlight of their week and that they really love our coffee, and it's super rewarding. And so I highly recommend people definitely check out Farmers Market as like a good way to have something in between like a permanent location and a more sporadic like pop-up.
I'm 100% sure that, well, not 100, but maybe 99 sure that there are people who heard of MoonWake and they're like, when did I hear about this? It's kind of ringing a bell. And then when they Google it, the Cybertruck comes up. So I wonder that, if Ming, it was your kind of like boy's dream to purchase something like that and use it as a tax deduction, you decided to use it for your pop-ups, or what's going on with that Cybertruck, man?
Yeah, I get this question a lot for sure. Yeah, I mean, I can't deny that I love it and that it's fun, but actually for us in reality, it was purely a business decision, and it was driven mainly by a problem that we couldn't find a good solution for, which was we were doing this farmers market for quite a while at that point, and we've gathered a lot of interest, and we constantly added more things. So we started with like a nice little GS3 single grinder, just one coffee that we were serving. It kept growing. Like we couldn't fulfill the demand. We added a second espresso machine, upgraded all the plumbing systems to handle that. Then we wanted to do a slow bar, like pour over experience. So we added that. I was up to like 4 battery packs, 4 different inverters. At that farmer's market, we can't use gas or propane. So it had to be batteries. I spent the whole day Saturday prepping for it, like every night, like cleaning up and getting things charged and reset. And it was, and at the end, we were still using like not true commercial equipment, and we weren't giving people the experience that we wanted. Like some people had to wait up to 20 minutes. Sometimes it's just not great. So, we had limited solutions. Like we could build a trailer maybe with batteries built into that. We could maybe just buy more bigger batteries and try to make that work. But we really needed commercial equipment. Like it was clear that if we were going to do this and we do it to the level that we wanted, we needed power, a lot of power, and we needed to get it soon. And so there's kind of like this confluence of different requirements where it was like, well, if we had a truck that could power everything, and especially at 240 volt, we could put a commercial machine on it, like that would make our lives a lot easier, and it'd be fun, and we'd be able to engage, and it'd be faster to build than a trailer. So the truck started making more and more sense. But I would say like the nail in the coffin that made it like the right solution to the problem was we had this great relationship with Brian Kwan and then David from Voltage Coffee Supply, where we could all benefit from kind of having a platform to showcase commercial equipment. And Voltage was willing to send us like a brand new state of the art, like top of the line espresso machines and grinders, essentially with no cost, as long as we showcased it and talked about it. These machines, as you're aware, are like these days $20,000 plus machines. They're not cheap, and picking the right one is hard. Like, I tried to look up reviews, and so here's like a once in a lifetime opportunity where we can kind of solve problems, give customers something really cool, and be able to get equipment and be able to test it in a real environment. Give our coffee nerds some really cool stuff to play with, even more incentive to come volunteer and help us out. It's just a lot of these added together, and we took the time to. It was a tough decision, but we even had spreadsheets where we tried to calculate, because it is, at the end of the day, you can't deny it's a driving billboard. So you will drive some people to look at your website. And so we tried to estimate like what's a really conservative conversion from, that top of funnel, from like all these new eyeballs looking at your website. It'll probably be really small to buy a coffee bean, but, still try to factor that in and see if that could compound into some returns that would be meaningful. And then lastly, it's an asset. So if we, a year down the line, decide, hey, it did its job or it didn't work well, you could still sell it. And just from my own perspective on knowing the market and cars, like I think there'll be demand for this truck for a couple of years. I don't think we'd lose much even if we had to sell it. So yeah, I think all of those numbers and reasons kind of just added, and I was like, okay, this is a good decision. But then, yeah, at the end of the day, it is fun. And when people see it, they're like, wow, you just wanted the tax write-off, or you have, your parents' money or something like that. And I laugh at it. I think it's funny that I get it. But at the end of the day, we did our homework. So we were confident that this was the right move for us at this time in this unique scenario.
One question was like, okay, well, why a Cybertruck versus any other type of vehicle, whether a food truck, like F-150 or like Rivian? So another big thing that, aside from the technical capabilities, we also wanted to make sure that the customer experience itself was a really positive thing. So, when we were thinking about food truck versus the Cybertruck, it's like a food truck has 4 walls, right? So I don't know about your experience, but usually it's a very, closed off experience. I take my order and then I walk away, and then I never see the guy in the food truck ever again because he's too busy trying to like work through his 20 or something orders. Versus with the way that we've kind of set up the experience, it's like that open transparency of the customer has always been really important to us. So, having the espresso machine on the back of the truck, right? We don't have walls. We have a lot of customers come up and like watch us as we're steaming, or like, take videos of our baristas like pouring the amazing latte art, right? And I think that's really the qualitative aspect of having the truck, as much as it seems like, oh, it's like a big beefy truck and all that, but it's more about what it can do and what it's enabling us. So yeah, that was a really big reason why, we wanted to make sure this was the right decision. All of those factors combined.
None of you mentioned that Ming has to be loyal to the company he works for. We have to send this podcast to Elon and make sure that he gets a raise. I mean, it also gives big, promo for Tesla truck, right? Not only for the coffee. And I have to say that's a really bold and cool move, because obviously that truck is not cheap. But having something like that in industry is incredible. And of course, the buzz it creates, you deserve all of it. Only people who are jealous would say that, oh, he has, what did you say, that he came off of, has rich parents or whatever, right? So they're just jealous people talking. It's like we are all jealous that you guys have something cool like that and you made it work for as a coffee truck. So now my project for the year would be converting my Bolt into a pour-over station or something.
There you go. Yeah. You just have to account for some of the rocking, right? And get like a leveling, was it like a gyroscope like platform so you can pour, and then you don't get like weird uneven, coffee beds.
Yeah.
That'd be really fun. I mean, I would love to come out.
Yeah, you should totally do that.
I will not have the same buzz as you guys with a Bolt. If you would have to pick one, let's say, one of these sales channels for somebody who's starting a business, what do they should start with?
Yeah, this is a really great question. I don't know if there's like one answer we can give, to be honest, because we've had pretty good success on both our like farmers market, sort of like direct to consumer, like brewing coffee operation, as well as our roasting business. So I feel like either is valid, depending on your circumstance and where your passion or your, where you think you would prefer to be in. I think we're fortunate in the Bay Area to have a place like Coro. And I know it's been mentioned on a couple of your podcasts before too, but like, we've been able to meet Bill from Hydrangea Coffee, and he's been almost like a great mentor to us. And having that co-roasting space makes getting into like the roasting side a lot more feasible. And obviously like way less capital demand to start. And if you can source good coffees and you can find somebody who, is willing to carry your coffee, maybe in like a small cafe or something like that, then I say the roasting side is probably a great place to get started in, just because, you don't need to necessarily have a lot of that like presentation directly to customers figured out. You can kind of do the roasting, come up with the packaging, and almost be done with it, as long as you have some good channels that you can and push it through initially. But then if you're more interested in kind of that direct customer interaction, like you like talking to people, you like seeing the smile on their face and finding a pocket in the community where there's maybe need for that, then doing the like pop-up farmers market side is actually pretty doable. I don't think you need a bit more capital, initial capital, but you can probably keep it low by getting a secondhand machine, finding a very simple cart, or maybe even making one yourself and getting started that way too, especially if you know of like a good farmers market that doesn't have a coffee vendor, or like an area that has a lot of traffic that, coffee shops are kind of out of the way in. That it kind of depends on your circumstance, but both of those seem equally good to me.
First and foremost, taking a look at what your personal goals or interests are with your business, right? Ming kind of mentioned, like, if you're more interested in purely the roasting side of the business, right, versus serving drinks to other, like doing that customer interaction, then focus in terms of coffee professionals, like on the roasting side of the business. And then within that, you can kind of split up. Do I want to do just direct to consumer? Do I want to do wholesale or not? Because to your point, right, like wholesale, it's very low margins, which means you have to do a crazy amount of volume, right? And that's going to be a lot of work. Like every minute, you're going to have to roast these big batches. Even though there are big capacity roasters, it's still, the packaging and doing all of that and having to like load all these, just the physical work behind it. If you don't have a passion or interest in roasting coffee, and you care more about like the hospitality side of the coffee aspect, right? Like serving people the coffee, then you can just focus on buying coffee from other roasters and then presenting that and focusing your energy there. And that way you don't have to work or worry too much about like green sourcing and kind of all that obsessive. Well, yes, like we're pretty obsessive about our green sourcing. So that takes a lot of time as well. So I think just kind of being realistic about what you're, what you have bandwidth for, right? If you're working full time, what your passions and ambitions are, right? How far you want to take this, that can really dictate, how much time you have available to dedicate to each of those channels, or what you feel like is the best use of your time and most fulfilling. The most fulfilling aspect that you get out of it. So, I think a lot of it's like making sure you do your mental homework, right? Mentally preparing yourself, so that way when you enter it, or when you actually choose to do something, you're not kind of deer in the headlights, like regret everything because you kind of didn't prepare yourself for it.
Right. I mean, it's all valid, but I have to say that we are lucky we have a co-roasting facility nearby, right? So if you want to start roasting and you don't have one, now you need that giant investment in the beginning, or maybe white label, I don't know. So we are super lucky in the Bay Area. We are spoiled. We actually have multiple competing places right now, so we can even pick. And that's how I built my American brand. So that's really cool. All right. Last time we talked, which was yesterday, you guys mentioned that you have kind of a special approach towards roasting. Can you elaborate that? What does it mean, a special approach?
We can think about it more of like how we approach the presentation of our coffees. And then Ming can talk a bit more about like the technical side of roasting. But from our sourcing perspective and the coffee that we sell, we kind of break up our lineup into 3 different like lines of coffees. So one is what we're calling like our cocoa expression, which is what we consider like lower acidity coffees. And We have another line called citrus coffees, maybe not as your traditional kind of coffee drinker would enjoy. And then we have our flagship line of coffees, or kind of like our more premium, I guess you could say, line of coffees called our Nova series. Unsure if we're going to keep the name, but the idea is that these are really spectacular coffees. And from like a Q grading perspective, if we want to be technical, like 88 plus point coffees that we think are really fantastic and really worth, highlighting and showcasing. I think for us, we wanted to kind of break down the very, very scary / overwhelming coffee selection process into something that's chunkable for customers. People always ask, I don't know what coffee, that I want to drink, right? So the way that we think about our lineup is kind of segmenting into that decision flow to make it easier for customers to kind of figure out which coffee that they do or don't want to drink. So yeah, we source the coffee specifically for those lines, and Ming is also dialing the profile to make sure that it fits within those profiles.
I think a bit about what makes us unique in the roasting perspective is we don't think there's a wrong way to enjoy coffee, first of all. So we want to find lower acidity coffees. We think that's just as valid as a way to enjoy really good single origin quality coffee, specialty coffee, equally as much as very fruit forward, floral forward, and modern profiles, you could say. And then we do try to keep the conversation directly on only farms, or at least collectives, as much as possible. So we don't do blends. And our entire coffee lineup, even for cocoa, is trying to just put the name of the farm and keep that as the forefront of the conversation as much as possible. And then lastly, when it comes to roasting and our philosophy, I think maybe we're a bit unique in terms of the range that we offer. Right now, we have some coffees that are in the what we call an ultralight roast level. So I know you're a roaster, so maybe this is more meaningful to you and other roasters. But I'm doing development times as low as 10 seconds sometimes for some coffees. And it's driven purely by the taste profile of that still being really good, even at that roast level. And then we're about to launch our first dark roast as well, which is a Panama anaerobic process one, which we're super excited to actually have as dark roast, because that's honestly what we think is the best presentation of that. A lot of that, there's still a touch of acidity, but a lot of that body characteristic, which is super good for that coffee for some reason, is thrown into overdrive, and we think it's a great expression of it. So yeah, I think there's many valid ways to present coffee, and this is just kind of what we found resonates with our customer base, and maybe is a bit unique because we don't think everything should be ultralight, purely tasting the greens and dealing with the grass and letting it rest forever. We don't think acidic or acidity forward coffees are bad and everything should be darker. We think there's part of the beauty of coffee is that there's such a huge spectrum compared to other beverages and products. And we want to try to find the best presentations at every level and try to give people a chance to get into specialty coffee that way. So yeah, I think that's kind of what we wanted to just share as our, approach. At the end of the day, we're coffee roasters first. So that's kind of our big driving factor.
I love that approach a lot because, many roasters, they have, let's say, one style of roasting. And as a coffee roaster, you are a chef of coffee. And you're basically saying to me that all I can do is a steak, nothing else, right? Or I can do eggs. And if you ask me to do, let's say, cooked eggs and not scrambled eggs, I don't accept that because all we do is scrambled eggs, right? So I think it's a very healthy approach. And my philosophy is always that you cannot tell consumers that they're drinking the bad coffee. So, people come and say, hey, I drink dark roast. Almost apologetically, they come to me and say, hey, I'm so sorry, I drink dark roast. I'm like, do you enjoy that? Yeah, that's great, man. I mean, because coffee makes us happy. So just drink what you like. The fact that I don't like dark roast should not bother you at all, because most likely you look at me like, hey, this crazy guy likes acidity. Yeah, I do. So that's okay. But sometimes I actually want a coffee which is more coffee-like. So that's why, for example, personally, again, this is personally, I'm not a big fan of anaerobic processes and all this crazy stuff, because what I want from my coffee is I don't believe that anaerobics do, because we're already alternating that flavor with different kind of yeast processes, playing a little bit more magic on those, which is okay for the industry, but not for me as my morning coffee. And that's, who cares? Like, people enjoy this, people enjoy that. And you as a chef, you have to make sure that you roast it in a way you see vision for that. For example, when you said that you want to roast the anaerobic dark, how they want to taste on it, that would be something really interesting. Nobody has a guts to do that, right? Because you buy the expensive coffees and you go like, oh, well, I will do something what everybody else, or super light, so we can taste all the anaerobicness. And you guys, no. I think that there is a way to express this coffee also as a dark roast, and we're going to do that. So kudos to you. Yeah, that's really, really cool to taste on. So think of me when you do that.
Yeah. We'll definitely send you some. And I love that you use like kind of like this chef analogy there. Like I also think about it very much like you're cooking for somebody, and that, some foods might taste a little bit better if they're, just seared, or some foods may be a little bit better if they're, cooked through a little bit more and mixed in with some other ingredients. So I love that you went down that route. And for sure, we'll share this with you. And I want to give credit to Bill as well. This is kind of an offering from this farm that Bill had before from hydrangea. And he was the one that kind of turned it on to us and said, hey, maybe this would be really good as like darker, to push that cocoa note that he was getting a bit into the forefront. So want to give him a shout out. He's been amazing in helping us too. And we'll definitely send you some. I'd be very curious what you think.
I'll send you the honest European style opinion, meaning honest.
Perfect.
Very blunt.
We had Bill on a podcast a few episodes back with hydrangea coffee, so it was fun to talk about coffee with him. Where do you want to take MoonWake? What size would make you happy?
I think it's something we still haven't fully answered yet, but I know that there's principles that we abide by for our company that we'll never sacrifice. So we care first and foremost about the quality of our product and the quality of the experience that we can give people. And I think for that, we tend to stick with more like micro lot offerings, and we spend a lot of time dialing those in, and we spend a lot of time trying to like get a feel for the local community and give them something that they're looking for. So I don't think we're planning to really expand too much. It would be nice to get to a little bigger of a size, I think, at least with a couple of storefronts, just so we can maybe buy more of the lot from these producers and make a bigger impact sales wise for these, smaller farms that we're trying to really like highlight and bring to the forefront of the conversation. So I think we could do more if we could, just be able to buy more of their coffee. But I think from that point, it's kind of, that may be our max size, or we may see opportunities to keep our quality and make a bigger impact and go further. I know from like a nerdy perspective, I really want to get more into like coffee botany and understanding fermentation and even applying it myself. And I always have this like personal itch to control something from the very beginning to the very end. And it would be amazing to have like a fully vertically integrated company where we can help with like the processing side, and as well as like development of new varieties and sustainability, and make an impact there too. But that's, perhaps wishful thinking at this point, or just dreaming. We're going to kind of just grow as we can and try to give our customers what they want and see where it takes us. But I think there'll be a lot of exciting stuff. And part of the fun is not knowing where we're going to end up being as well. Yeah, that's kind of like how I feel about it. Mabel?
I think it's really challenging, because it's one of those things like, he who fails to plan plans to fail. But at the same time, you have to still take things day by day, in the same way that this whole year has been us being really flexible and being able to doing different initiatives or switching to the farmer's market. And even within the farmer's market, right, like being able to quickly switch our setups. So I think we have ambitions to, number one, Ming mentioned, like still stay true to our mission, which is to deliver excellent coffee experiences to people, right? And have that be our guiding, principle, and whatever form that may take, right? We just need to make sure that it still fits that mission statement, right? Whether it's expanding another coffee shop or really digging into, like our single storefront, and then maybe doing a little bit more wholesale, like who knows, right? We kind of mentioned like wholesale is probably not going to be the channel, but, I don't want to ever kind of keep myself closed-minded, because then that kind of limits your growth, right? And the opportunities that you can kind of either learn something new or share something with other people. So yeah, I think taking it day by day, we're going to focus on building the first shop first, seeing how well we can take that. And if it becomes, successful enough that we can kind of hand the baby off to the babysitter, right? And Rig and I can kind of, do a little bit more of the higher level strategy of that vertical integration. That'd be awesome, as well. But definitely, hard to say at this point in time. All we know is we just have to keep taking it one day and one step at a time. It'd be really interesting to listen to this podcast like 5 years from now to see how this has aged. So I'm excited. Hopefully it'll be a good retrospective when we go back and listen to this.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. Like, time I do anything in my life, like for example, learning French, just be silly like that, right? And I find something frustrating that, okay, I'm doing this for 3 years. I don't speak it, right? But if you go back year to how much I knew then and now, it's very cool to see the progress, right? And it's true with everything in their lives.
I do.
I tortured you for over an hour, so it's just fair that you guys can ask me also a question.
I wanted to have one question where this is probably the most challenging one, so I'm going to grill you the really, really uncomfortable one. So now that you're looking back, right, we kind of talked about the retrospective. If you were to be completely honest, which you always are, what was the one or two things that you hated most, or like that you disliked the most about operating your business? And is that something that you just have to deal with, or was there something that you could have done to hate it less? So I'm just curious. Kind of a interesting question.
I am really risk averse mentally. So I have to overcome that. And it's true also when I'm investing into my retirement portfolio. I hate uncertainty. So anytime I do business, that uncertainty is just killing me. Because I always think I'm a smart man. I always think that I have logic and I can put 1 + 1 together and it's going to be 2. But in business, it doesn't work like that, right? You can be the smartest person. You can read most of the books. And you need that spark of luck, right? And sometimes when you don't have it, that uncertainty is killing me. And you apply all the knowledge you know, when you apply all the work you know, and it's just not happening, it just was killing me. And then sometimes we're not doing half as much, and just a spark of luck came and it changes everything. So that uncertainty is for me something which I hate most about business.
I guess it's not really something you can change too much. And I agree. I think Ming probably knows this about myself too. It's like the kind of unknown world out there is really scary, but you just have to kind of trust yourself and your ability to kind of adapt, to kind of help you through.
You have to respect it.
Yeah, no, that's totally valid.
You have to respect it. That's all. Like, you have to realize it exists and not, go like, hey, I'm just, I hate this, but you have to respect it and just live with it. Yeah. So basically for me, if I would start another business in my life, I have to learn to live with it rather than just, hate it, I guess.
Yeah. I guess it's like really good that you frame it that way, because either end of the spectrum is really bad, right? Like, being so comfortable with uncertainty, you could definitely fall into traps and not be careful enough. But then you could be paralyzed by it on the other end and never even get started and be too afraid. So, saying to respect it, I feel like is that good middle ground where it's enough to prevent you from making too many mistakes, hopefully, but it won't completely stop you from even trying. It's good advice.
Yeah.
I also have like 50 questions, but I'll just keep it at one more.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm curious from your perspective, like, talking to so many entrepreneurs and also being a trainer and helping guide people to get started. Like, after seeing so many cases, I'm curious what you think, like, the biggest problem holding back new entrepreneurs in coffee?
Oh, I divided it into 2 groups. One is our students, and the biggest problem there is starting. Do it. There's so many students who come take all the courses, and I'm very grateful for that. Willem is very grateful for that. But at the end of the day, you have to apply it, right? And many people take those courses because they want to start business, and they just don't do it. And doing it is very important. And I understand that they are scared to get burned, but you have to get burned because that will be your lesson. There's no manual how to do business. That doesn't exist, right? So what you have to do is do it, learn, right? Pivot. Important. That's the biggest thing. And I already see when people are hesitating too much, I kind of feel that these people will most likely not make it. I want you to have a good value from the course. And I see that you paid so much money. And I see that you asking the wrong questions, right? So that's from a perspective of students. And from perspective of people who already have businesses, the main reason why people, I think, that have a hard time to make it is the kind of like a non-business attitude, or I call it I cannot do it attitude, or rather than looking like how can I do it, is more like, complaining about certain issue, like constant complaining that this is hard, this this barrier, that barrier, rather than thinking like, hey, there's a barrier, okay, what can we do now, right? If you don't have that attitude, you should not even start a business, because it will be miserable for you. You have a whole list of complaints. And my business partner in Slovakia was like this. He was always like, this is not possible because of this. This is not possible of that. And it drove me crazy, man. It just was like I was like, and I know that it's something which is very inherent in the culture there. So it's not only him personally. And this is where I see United States is so much better. There's many more people who are looking into like, how can I do this, rather than complaining the whole world is against me, kind of like, the sad violin, the kind of thing. So, so I think this is it. So does it answer your questions?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like that's a quality. Through my years, I've helped with a lot of like interviews, even for tech companies, and that's like a quality we even look for great engineers too. Like taking ownership and responsibility, like never trying to find somebody who's just like, it's somebody else's fault and somebody else's problem. That like extreme ownership mentality is like a great trait even for engineers. So it totally makes sense that in the business world, you definitely need the same to keep pushing your business forward. So yeah, that's awesome to hear.
Yeah. I forgot to mention one thing, that you guys are Boot Coffee alumni.
Yeah, both of us.
Yeah. And this is not a Boot Coffee podcast per se, but right now, today, I'm still working at Boot Coffee, and you were there when I was there. So how was your experience, and what did you do with your medals and accolades? I mean, Ming, you are a Q grader, right?
I'm a Q grader, and you were my instructor for that as well. And I deeply appreciate it. It's probably the best experience coffee-wise I've had in my life, and I owe it a lot to you, especially for being, brutally honest and like showing us the way. And yeah, I will be kind of embarrassed. You'll probably hate me for this, but I forgot that you actually have like a certificate you can hang up.
Love it, man. I love it.
So I never hung it up.
Love it. Oh, it's great.
Oh, you love it? That's not what I was expecting.
No, because the fact you did it, the fact you were really awesome at it. I remember you were basically sliding through the exams like no tomorrow. I remember you very quiet in a corner. You're very kind of like not very loud and stuff. As when the exams came, you were just like pump. So it's really cool. And that means you're confident that you don't need you don't need any paper to show or on your wall. So I love it. Yeah, it's cool. Mabel, you were doing the barista course, right?
Yeah. That was I kind of think of it like, if someone who hasn't done business before gets an MBA, right? I was like, oh well, I've never had a traditional actual barista role before, so I kind of need like my version of barista MBA. So I took that course with Boot, and it was with Dan, right? And really appreciate the lessons learned and kind of things that you don't realize. When you're making coffee at home or espresso at home, it's really different, versus making it in a commercial setting. So being able to pick up some of those, even little things like little tricks, like, the order that you serve drinks and operations like that was was really useful, especially now that we're, doing our retail or drink sales at the farmers market. Has really improved, or at least I think benefited us as a team, being able to serve drinks in a very excellent and efficient manner. Things like cleaning up after yourself. Who would have thought? Like, those are very, critical skills that you need as a barista, like keeping your station neat and presenting the drink in certain ways. So little things like that you learn on the job, but also it's just good to have that like framework in your mind as you're a coffee professional. And putting myself in the shoes of, the people that I'll be working with, right? People that I'll be probably managing, and being able to relate to, the struggles that my team will be going through. So that was a really invaluable experience as well.
Just for the listeners, you're referring to Dan Streetman, who is one of our trainers, and he has his company Bird and Bear, and one of the most popular podcasts on coffees.me.
I
guess I'm serious. I guess because of the catchy title. It's something like Dan claims you can start a coffee business with $2,000, something like that.
Oh, yeah.
I know it's clickbaity. I'm sorry, but he really claims that, and he's also not only a trainer but buddy of mine. So it's a very good conversation. So there's a good vibe, like with you guys, right? We already know each other, so it's more friendly vibe, I guess. When it comes to cleaning, I'm so happy that you said that. We're not talking about the ratios and in recipes and dialing in, but cleaning. You know what happened to me? And if you listeners are having a coffee shop and a messy surrounding, please change that. I was referred to a incredible bakery/pastry shop. I'm not going to name them because I do not want them to suffer for this, because they are really amazing. They use amazing material as coffee, except their station was disgusting. Like ground coffee everywhere. They had Linea, La Marzocco Linea, the shiny one with like fingerprints all over. And I'm like, it's such a disconnect when you have this incredible pastry/bread program and this disgusting station with your coffee. I'm like, I really felt like talking to the owner, and I really don't want to get the barista into trouble. I'm like, can you guys fix this? I will come here every day. I just discovered something wonderful, and it's like, So guys, just clean your bars. We see it. The customers see your bars. Just clean them. Damn it. It was such a disappointing event. Anyways. All right, where can people find you if they want to taste only one of your coffees? Where they can buy it, or where can they learn more about you?
Yeah, so online you can find us at www.moonwakecoffeeroasters.com. We're also on Instagram, so at MoonWake Coffee Roasters. And you can also find us in person for now at the Cupertino De Anza College Farmers Market from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. And hopefully later this year in 2024, you'll be able to find us at our new home in West San Jose. I guess I can share the address. It's Saratoga Avenue. So if folks are in the neighborhood, would love to host people when we have 4 walls and don't have to drive our 4 walls with us around.
Without opening?
Currently, I think ideally August or September 2024. I think that's kind of the expected timeline. But fingers crossed, we'll keep things on track. It'll be a cafe and roastery, so we'll be able to, show customers kind of the end-to-end process, from the coffee seed and the green bean all the way to, the drink being prepared. We might have to ask you about coffee plant care, because we are thinking about possibly having a coffee plant.
Oh, I can help.
We'll text you.
I got you. Don't worry about that. That we can even give you some plants from because we just have fresh cherries on our plant in Boot. So I can give you some, it can be basically like we can have children together, right? Because we give you
oh my gosh.
So we're going to be like, we're going to be family, like a coffee family. This is incredible.
Oh my gosh.
That would be amazing. Yeah. It's like the knowledge, being passed to us and like growing. So
yeah, I plant you a seed. I plant you a seed, and when it germinates, it will be your baby, and you guys have to take care of it. Okay, awesome. Remind me with a text. So yeah, and I'm excited because I'm not going to talk more about that yet, but I'll be spending more time in San Jose. I'm starting a new project, most likely. I don't want to jinx it yet. That's why I'm not going to talk about it. But if I do, I'll be super cool to visit you more often there. So it will be awesome. And thank you so much for
looking forward to it.
Being on a podcast and sharing even numbers, which is pretty cool. So thank you so much. and have a good one.
Yeah, thanks for having us. It was great chatting. Looking forward to seeing you soon.
Yeah, thank you so much, Valerian. This was awesome. I love your podcast. So it's been an honor to be on.